The Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition starter set will release July 15th, but Wizards of the Coast has already released a free PDF containing the basic rules of 5th edition. There's not enough there to actually play the game, but there is enough to give you a good idea of what 5th edition will entail. Initial prospects look promising. Reading through the basic rules, if there's one conclusion you can draw, it's that Wizards is really making an effort to listen to its fan base. I mean, let's face it, 4th edition was a disaster. Not because it's a bad game, but because it fragmented the Dungeons & Dragons player base like no edition before it, and it's because of 4th edition that D&D now has to deal with something it never had to deal with before. A serious competitor. And that's Pathfinder, aka 3.75 edition. Now, I played both 3.5 and 4th edition extensively, and I enjoyed both editions. Each brought something different to the table, and I was able to appreciate them for what they were. Now, 5th edition keeps some of the elements, some of the good elements that 4th edition brought to the table, but it's very much closer to a 3.5 core or base, and it builds off that. It's the natural evolution of 3.5. Or you could even say it even takes a step toward the past, maybe even bringing back some of the original elements of D&D. Now, one thing that bothered me when people would complain about 4th edition was that they'd say, there's no role-playing in 4th edition. And I was really opposed to that argument, because as far as I was concerned, there's as much role-playing in a role-playing game as you want there to be. No amount of focus on combat mechanics is going to stop you from role-playing. But it's when I read the 5th edition basic rules that I finally got that argument. It finally clicked. I understand now why people say there was no role-playing in 4th edition, because there's so much role-playing in 5th edition. The problem isn't the role-playing. The lack of role-playing is just a symptom. A symptom of a lack of flavor written into the rules, a lack of focus on elements that encourage role-playing. And what it boils down to is a lack of focus on the very heart of what makes D&D D&D. Open any 4th edition rulebook at random, and you're likely to find yourself reading a passage that is at least tangentially related to describing combat mechanics. 4th edition has a really deep and robust combat system, which is great for what it is, and it needed all those pages to describe it. The problem is that D&D was never a war game. It was the evolution of the war game into a separate genre, the role-playing game. Tactical combat maneuvers aren't what captured our imagination as children. It was the fantasy of taking on the role of a hero on an epic adventure. 5th edition puts the focus back on the magic of the experience. Where 4th edition focused mostly on combat, 5th edition shines a greater spotlight on role-playing and exploration. Just about every gameplay mechanic, from ability scores to races to classes, all of these things are cast in a certain perspective that puts flavor at the forefront, then role-playing second, where it'll ask you questions to make you think about your character, how a certain ability score or a certain class might affect your character, and it'll maybe explain how, say, a fighter might view the world differently from a cleric. It all puts the focus very much on the story, on the roleplay, on the flavor, and then of course it also explains the rules for combat. In terms of pure game mechanics, 5th edition retains a lot of 3.5, throws in a little 4th edition, and some new elements as well. And if you want to know more about those, then I encourage you to check out the article I wrote over at The Escapist. You can find the link in the description below, which contains my impressions of D&D 5th edition. It is basically an expanded version of what I'm saying right now, and we get a little bit more into the details of what to expect. Now, we've only seen a little bit of what 5th edition has to offer, but again, initial impressions are promising. It looks like we're going back to the roots of D&D. So as we wrap things up here, I invite you to leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on 5th edition. Did 4th edition spurn you, or did you like 4th edition? Are you a Pathfinder player now? Are you ever going to come back to D&D? Are you going to give 5th edition a chance? Do you think 5th edition can save D&D? Let me know your thoughts. And until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe for more Diablo 3 and tabletop RPG content, including Reaper of Souls guides, RPG quick tips, character and campaign ideas, and live recorded Dungeons & Dragons sessions.